We will now move into the last section. We have some more participants that just joined us. So there's a little bit of handover now. I will introduce my last moderator. This is Dr. Jacob Schart. Dr. Jacob Schart, he has worked for a number of really big institutions. He's worked for the International Monetary Fund. He has worked for the Swiss government. He's worked for Avenir Suisse, and he co-headed the Swiss Banking Association. So he is a wonderful magic man, and I'm very proud to announce him today that he moderates this panel. I also wanted to mention we are an association that has members, and we're still open to take more members. So if any one of you would be interested to engage in our club, also help to organize panels, moderate, be part of the team, also be expert and give content. So this would be really, much appreciated, and we'd still take members. So just give me a hand or give me your business card. Also contact Samira and contact Anton. So this would be really great to rejuvenate our club and have more members. So with that having said, I realize Jacob already has a full cable, right? And the technique is working. So I'm handing over, please, a hand to Jacob. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. Usually people who say that are not brief, but I'll try harder. I'll try harder. So this panel is about innovation and all the aspects of innovation. Innovation economics, innovation finance, innovation economic policy. The first part is innovation, all that fuss, it's just save workforce, and in the end we're all without a job. Is that innovation? Is that interesting? Let's go back to the ways it has never been, right? So that's that, and then find out how to make money, and then in the end, how do we have to shape economic policy? And actually, I'm now introducing one after the other. The first one is already here. I'm going to stand a bit away here. Is Annalisa Eggimann. She's the CEO, and we're really very proud that she's here today. She's the CEO of InnoSwiss, the Swiss innovation agency. She is a lawyer by profession, but she also has an executive MBA. And she has, and that's an important background for her, worked for the Swiss Science Foundation for quite a while in different senior positions. And then we're going to hear Maurice Pedernana. He has several hats. So he's so he's the General Secretary of SECA, he's a professor, and he's also the chief economist and founder and partner in a finance firm. So he has a lot to say about this. And then finally we have Evelyn. I think she's wired right now, yes? Evelyn, she's the one who knows how to make money with innovation. And that's actually why we had this panel, because we disagreed in one of our previous well, not really disagreed. I was saying, oh, innovation comes from only startups, and and she said, oh, that's not true. We use market data to determine innovation and then make lots of money. So, okay, now that was too long. Now I want to give the floor first to Annalisa Eggimann, who's going to explain to us how Swiss innovation policy works. And very briefly, 5 minutes, we want to discuss, right? Everyone has lots of questions. Then Maurice Pedernana, then Evelyn Fluki, and then we can discuss. Please.
Okay, thank you very much,
The floor is yours.
And good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. I must admit that I do not have daily touch points with the capital market world, but of course I know how important this world is for our customers. Let me just say a few words about InnoSwiss. What is InnoSwiss and what do we do? So InnoSwiss is the innovation promotion agency of the Swiss Confederation. We are a federal public law entity with our own legal personality, and this since 2018. Our mission is to promote science-based innovation in any kinds of disciplines. So it can be technological, but it can also be social innovation. What is quite typically Swiss is that we have a bottom-up approach. That means that we do not predefine any topics or themes. We do not predefine budgets for certain topics or disciplines, but we let the actors in the field to come with their proposals, and we then evaluate them, and the good ones get funded. So that's the basic principle in Switzerland. So we always say we do not have industry policy or whatever, so the actors in the market should know best what to do. Science-based, what does that mean? So we really are active in the field between science and practice. So our aim is really to translate scientific knowledge into practice, to help practitioners in the field to make use of scientific knowledge. And we do that in different ways. I will come back to that. So just basically the interweaving of science and practice is really an essential feature of our activity. We have different funding instruments. So the most important one is the innovation project funding, but we also have special support activities for startups, and we finance special measures also for knowledge and technology transfer. As I already said, the most important funding activity is innovation project funding. InnoSwiss has a total annual budget of around 300 million Swiss francs, and in 2022 we spent around 160 million for innovation projects, the traditional innovation projects. As a Swiss particularity, and this is compared to other countries, the direct financial support has been exclusively limited so far to universities and to not-for-profit research centers, the so-called research partners. They are expected to cooperate with partners from the entrepreneurial world, mostly SMEs, but also startups, the so-called implementation partners. You see them there. So they establish a joint project, and the implementation partners have to bring their own financial means for their project part, and this is normally between 40% and 60% of total direct project costs. The other part, the one of the research partner, that's what we finance normally. So this is a very old scheme. We had a predecessor organization that started with this kind of funding activity during World War II, and it was really a means to tackle economic crisis. And I'm quite convinced that this will, for a long time, also stay our most important instrument we have. We all know that the world is changing, so innovation processes are accelerating and becoming more and more complex. The role of startups has become more important, especially for disruptive and radical innovation. And furthermore, international cooperation in innovation, for example, along supply chains, has become very often indispensable for the success of a project. And as a consequence, the Research and Innovation Promotion Act, which forms the legal basis of our funding activities. You know, we are a public organization, so we need a legal basis for our activities. This act was revised, and the new regulations came into effect on the 1st January 2023, so this year. The revision offers a more flexible framework for the funding of our activities, and in particular, it offers the possibility to directly support innovation projects of startups to help them accelerate market entry. Proposals can be submitted since end of February on a constant basis, and we see that the new instrument comes slowly into gear. So for the time being, we have around 30 applications for a total requested amount of close to 60 million. So you see that are rather big projects that come in. If successful, a startup receives up to 70% of the direct project costs. The remaining 30% they have to bear themselves. Startup promotion is not completely new to us. At least for 2 decades, we have had a coaching program for science-based startups. Currently, we have about 500 startups in this coaching program, and then they can make use of experienced and accredited startup coaches. We have about 180 such startup coaches that are active for us. Furthermore, the startups have also the possibility to participate in so-called market entry or market validation camps that are offered at different locations worldwide. And they can also present themselves at international fairs because, of course, for Swiss startups, deep tech startups, for example, the Swiss market is not enough. They really need to internationalize, and we want to help them in that respect. As I already mentioned, international cooperation in innovation is constantly gaining in importance. And in that respect, the non-association to Horizon Europe, the important research and innovation promotion program of the European Union, is not only a huge problem for universities, but also for enterprises, including SMEs and startups. Fortunately, the Confederation mandated InnoSwiss already last year to launch a so-called Swiss accelerator, a Swiss alternative to the EIC accelerator. Unlike the European instrument, we can, however, offer only the grant part of the program and not the equity part of it. Nevertheless, what I can say, the response to our first call last year was really great. We received 750 proposals for a total requested amount of close to 1.4 billion. We recently made the final decisions. I'm, for the time being, not able to give detailed information. What I can say is we are able to finance around 50 projects, a little bit more, with an amount of about 100 million Swiss francs. So you see, this is a very, very competitive program. So we have a success rate below 10%. So it's comparable to what the European Union has, I think. But I think, in my opinion, it's really too competitive. So in that case, you have a lot of inefficiencies during the evaluation. And of course, it's also a problem of lottery, because you have many good proposals and one is happy and the other not. So you can give your best, but you won't be fair in all the cases. So I think I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot,
I'm looking forward
Annelies.
to the discussion.
So a chance in 1 in 10. Wow, that's not great. But this was very interesting, because there's also some new stuff going on, and I think you were very diligent in getting this done. Now, this is about economic policy. We were starting at the end, but now let's start with the basics. What's all the fuss about innovation? Is that important? Is it just lose jobs, or what is it about?
Oh, the question is actually what is innovation and what is an innovative economy. Innovation, I would say 85% of economic growth is fueled by innovation. And if you look at this page, I would say innovation always starts with people and ideas, not with capital. We have innovation in the end needs a combination of creativity, of a combination of human power, of capital also, but the sources of capital cannot be reduced to a certain program, to venture capital or to business angels. The history of Switzerland shows that it is quite important to have outstanding entrepreneurs, such as Peter Spuhler or Hans-Jörg Wyss. They are really outstanding entrepreneurs, and they would have done their job, and have done quite a bit of their job, without any capital at all to start with. The second point is that we actually lack a culture of entrepreneurship. So quite often the most successful entrepreneurs have been members of a conglomerate, members such as Jean-Paul and Martin Clausel. They have been working for Hoffmann La Roche. And Hoffmann La Roche said, hey, your ideas are stupid. We don't fund this idea. Then they left Roche, and eventually, you know the story, sold the company for 30 billion Swiss francs to Johnson & Johnson. So that has been one of the most successful stories in our country's history. The business angel community has risen in the last 10, 20 years, and this has become quite important because companies such as Sensirion or uBlocks, they haven't gone through steps of a traditional venture capital program. They haven't gone through procedures such as today's ETH fellowship program or whatever. But they found some business angels, and they were sponsored by those business angels and now are on our Swiss stock exchange and still growing in a tremendous way. Then we also have this venture capital scene, which has become broader and broader, but what we really lack is large funds of venture capital, and this is what I like with the European Investment Fund. And Björn, is he still here? Björn, I liked your presentation, and because I believe in this field we should have a broader perspective than a Swiss perspective. We should at least have a European perspective. From the very first moment on, an entrepreneur should have or should think globally, and he should get access, especially access in his growth phase, from large venture capital funds. And in Europe, we simply still lack those really huge funds. And one of the most prominent ETH PhD student, Severin Hacker, he came from Zug, then went to the US and is now a billionaire in the US with his app Duolingo. And he didn't find the money 11 years ago here in Switzerland. That's quite a pity. What we can also see is, you mentioned those Swedish pension funds, but the Swedish pension funds do also invest in companies such as Northvolt. And Northvolt is probably at the moment the most prominent non-listed venture capital-backed European company, worth some 30, 20, I don't know, billion euros, and no Swiss pension fund has invested in that company, but you know who did it? Peter Spuler invested in that company again. So an entrepreneur remains an entrepreneur even when he invests his private own money. So he didn't make the investment by Stadler Rail, but by out of his own pocket. And he saw a huge market for Northvolt, also for his trains. Northvolt is the #1 battery producer in Europe. Global venture capital is, corporate venture capital is a different source. We need that source. Almost a third of all transactions are being financed from corporates meanwhile, and they quite often have a different angle than typical venture capital funds. Sometimes in Switzerland we need private equity in buyouts, such as look at the SME members, Geberit, Sonova, or so. They have been funded in its growth area by private equity. VAT Group, Burkhardt Compression, and others, they have all gone through the buyout phase, and that was quite important for their governance, for their value add, strategic discipline, and so on. And the most important thing maybe on this page is, and what has changed, is the largest takeover in Switzerland's history is still the takeover of Roche, the takeover of Genentech through Roche. But the history was researchers in Basel had this target to become Nobel Prize winners and not to become entrepreneurs. And the DNA of Genentech came from Basel. And those guys then went and realized Genentech in California, worked in the labs with blue jeans and so on. And even in the takeover agreement, they signed it and said, but we don't close ourselves like Roche employees in their labs. We want to keep up our culture, our Californian culture. And that's the difference. Roche, meanwhile, with Fritz Gerber at the top, that company really transformed to a new company, to transform to what it is today. And we can really learn out of all those examples what an innovative organization, an innovative economy could be. And with that, I would actually like to hand over.
Thanks a lot. That was really great. Perfect. Entrepreneurship. So we'll have our final introduction. Evelyn Pflugi, I didn't say enough before. She's the founder and CEO of Singularity Group. She is an engineer from the ETH. Actually, that's one other theme that I think is important, universities in Switzerland. And you are making money with innovation. So please tell us how.
Thanks. Thank you for having me, and thanks for waiting. I know you're all waiting for a cold beer, I think. I'll also try to be quick. The title here is Innovation Screening to Verify Real Trends, and I think I'm going to address a few things that a lot of the speakers have addressed as well, which is, I think Pascal Böhni mentioned it first, you have to select the right ones. Then I think Björn also said, if you select the right funds, you're going to do well. You mentioned it as well, there are some success factors that you have to select for, and you mentioned as well, we pick the good ones, right? So a lot of the conversation today is about innovation, and a lot of it is about venture capital. I note here a few things that have changed the world significantly, and I want to note that one thing gets forgotten. Not only do these technologies or innovations or things that penetrated the world exponentially have this S-curve of penetration rate, what they also have in common, I think we forget that, is they actually happened. So when we're looking for innovation and interesting new technologies, we forget to screen sometimes for their applicability. We're very excited about new things and the hopeful scenarios they bring us, but I think we also need to focus on them being doable. And that's what we do. So we're talking a lot about the left side here. We didn't invent this chart, by the way. When a new technology comes to the world, there's a lot of R&D, a lot of science that goes into it, a lot of people being very excited about it, a lot of press, a lot of marketing, and very high valuations. And actually, this is where most of the ETFs, but also most of the VC strategies that were mentioned by one presentation as well, in metaverse or hydrogen.
Perhaps
sorry.
into it because you won't be
I
visible.
wanted to see what I'm
sorry.
talking about.
Yeah,
but yeah,
sure.
I think I know. But basically, I think there are a lot of people concerning themselves these days, also in Switzerland, with this left-hand side. I know we're very concerned about it, but I think there's enough attention going there. Currently, we're focusing on the right-hand side. And the right-hand side means that even the newest technology, I don't think there's one hugely successful company that built their whole value chain by themselves, right? Even the most successful technology, the newest, most disruptive thing, has needed something, has come together with other things that have already existed before. And most of the new technologies actually these days, or the recent wave of innovation has been, through semiconductors, and most of them have actually come from listed equities that were able to provide them. So I'm also making a case here, not only for the stage where things are happening, where money is being made, but also for listed equities, because I think it gets forgotten. And so what we do, quickly to tell you our strategy, is we try to identify. Actually, we kind of don't make the bet on what management team is great in what regulatory environment and what technology will be the next one. But we do try to understand innovation from the perspective that we want to know, is a company able to produce a product or a service, something that can be sold for revenues, that is used in an innovation value chain? And that is the Singularity Innovation Score. That's the percentage of revenue that you make by selling stuff, not the amount of money that it costs, actually. And the assumption is that if you're in that value chain and you have something unique that isn't commoditized, you actually have tremendous growth potential, and with that growth potential comes also tremendous pricing power. And that's what's important as well if you want to keep your margin and you really want to become one of the largest companies in the world. So assuming we do that roughly right, I have a question. The world's global revenues, end of 2022 or the whole of 2022, stuff sold, products and services that made revenues by listed equities, listed companies, is about $76 trillion US. How many percent of that do you think were linked to innovation or innovation products being sold? 10? 18, another bit? It's actually 4%. According to us, only 4% of revenues that are made globally are actually made by selling products that belong to an innovation value chain or an end product. That's not a lot. That's a needle in a haystack, actually. And that's exactly what venture capital is also trying to do. So, a lot of people in this room, I think, as well, and a lot of people we talk to tell me, we want to go into private markets, we want to go into private debt, we want to go into VC because we feel like, the markets, we can capture those with an index. And so they invest in the benchmarks. And here's the MSCI World as a benchmark. And, obviously, there was a time where that was the right thing to do, the time of free money, right? You could invest in any benchmark, the S&P, the NASDAQ, the MSCI World, the Euro stocks, etc., and you will have made some money because there was free money around. There were monetary and fiscal policies that supported that. I will say there's a new market regime happening. Interest rates are going up, inflation is sticky, and now you need to also, in listed markets, actually select companies that continue to make earnings so that they can actually continue to spend on this innovation that we want them to do. And so we did that, right? We applied our innovation score. Been doing this for 5 years only, so I apologize, I can't go further back than 2017. But we've basically separated the market. The MSCI All Country, those 4% of revenues that are innovative, we've taken them out, and we've parked that in companies in the MSCI All Country that are innovative. That is the orange line, and the non-innovative one, you see, is the gray line, the light gray line, and the market would have been the dark gray line. And just to prove a point, right, this is also about making money, Here you see the light blue line is always the total return of any benchmark you want. Also the NASDAQ there. I know you could have made a lot of money just investing in the NASDAQ the last 5 years if you actually selected for those companies that do innovation revenues. And by the way, it's about 30 to 40% of the NASDAQ companies, so only 30 to 40 of the companies in the NASDAQ. And believe you me, it's not the top ones that you think. You would have made even better returns than if you just picked the NASDAQ. And going forward, I think that will matter more and more and more, and the same for the S&P. And so what matters more, right? What matters, the alpha, you can say, you had to predict what the market was going to do. But you really want to make sure those companies also can deliver or can verify this performance with some earnings. And so we can also show that across these benchmarks, with an innovation screen for innovative revenues, we've been able to create, for the NASDAQ at least, even far superior earnings growth than for the non-innovative part of the NASDAQ, which, again, is the bigger part of the NASDAQ. And here a result out of an innovation survey that we run every year, again, on listed companies, and we ask them, how susceptible are you to these problems that are coming? Rising inflation, rising energy prices, fluctuating demand, rising interest rates, etc. And we found that companies that score well on an innovation screen when it comes to revenue, products with innovation, have been far less susceptible to all these problems than others. And I think in this room we all agree on that, right? That innovation makes companies more resistant to challenges, and it actually, maybe the challenge helps them innovate. So we agree on that. I just think that sometimes it's not necessarily that you have to look for companies that are in the research phase. This is us, just so you know, we're a bunch of blonde women. We have a few men too, but because I talk about us a lot, and a redhead as well. This is our board. But I want to tell you one thing when we're talking about innovation and trends. What we do is focus on the middle, which is anything that is capable of happening, right? So I think we forget that just because something was once innovative, it doesn't have to be forever. Innovation always commoditizes. It has a timeline, so things go away. So we want to make sure we know when an innovation is due for a renewal, or when it's not really innovative anymore, when it has become a commodity. And we want to stay away from anything that actually doesn't find any application. So we want to be in focus. And the reason we do that is because we think you should only ever, and this goes for venture capital, I think, and I'll be very curious to hear about how you select those good companies. You should always try to invest in something that's doable. Of course, it's nice to be dreaming, but if you're focusing on applied innovation, and this is what we're doing, and you put any theme there, right? We had the metaverse before, we've talked about hydrogen before, I think also at this event. We put a theme there that actually Americans and Mexicans are talking a lot about, but we're not talking a lot about it in Europe, and that is the theme of reshoring and deglobalization and the re-bringing back of the supply chain. And I would say that has a hell of a lot to do with innovation as well. When we're trying to be competitive, it's not just about being invested in the right space, it's also about investing in things that are actually doable. And so I want to leave with maybe one comment, and the focus here is on applied innovation, not just innovation. There is an arms race, sadly, going on in certain parts of the world. But innovation spending, and the biggest innovation spender, and I think that makes the comment of the first slide, or one of the second ones, which was, why is America and Israel spending so much more? I think that's military, right? It's not just it's not the government necessarily.
You tell me.
But I want to focus this part of the conversation also on what's actually doable. And on applied innovation, because I think it's important for all our economies to focus on it.
Great, thanks a lot. So, yeah, please. Actually, I have a hell of a lot of questions, but I'm sure you do too. So you are talking about doable innovation, or applied innovation, but from endogenous growth theory, the idea is that you have some really path-breaking innovations, and then you use that innovation, you use all the stuff that you can do with it, like the internet. We're still doing that, right? Because the handhelds are probably part of that. So that's all that theory. So are Are we concentrating, I mean, applied innovation, can we do that without the fundamentals? I mean, what would our policy be? Annalise, for example. Is that enough, applied innovation?
Well,
or actually Maurice, yeah.
very often applied innovation is based on fundamental innovation that was done before. So I think what we try to look is that the innovation project is developed from the needs of the entrepreneurs in the field and not from the ideas of the researchers in academia. Because we very often see that they have good ideas and they have an image of the real world, but maybe this is not really realistic. And through the construction of our innovation projects, we have the meeting of both worlds. So they really have to exchange opinions, and the entrepreneurial world has to tell them what they need, and so they can adapt. And the best projects are the ones where both sides can really cooperate and work together. So that's of course a very important thing. And we try to have this reality check in a way that we have experts from the field that are active in innovation in the entrepreneurial world. We have also few researchers from academia, but we have a lot of researchers that are active in the field and who know the industry and who know what's applicable and what's not applicable. So I think we try to have this reality check in our funding.
So you said that basically the drive comes from entrepreneurs and they use the science. Well, I'd say Mariana Mazzucato from London, you know, from the UCL, she would disagree. She would say, yeah, the entrepreneurial state, you know, has to start things like the European Investment Fund, I would argue. I don't know. Maybe. What would you say, Maurice, about that?
Well, I will put emphasis certainly on innovation and entrepreneurship. And I'm not really convinced that everything needs to be technology-based. Because if you look at some of the most successful Swiss companies, they're not really technology or science-based. If you look at Geberit, they made the success with toilets, sanitary installations. But the most efficient way of installation of those sanitary needs in renovation procedure of a house. Or look at the hairdresser in Melbourne who has founded some 20 years ago Aesop. Aesop, the cosmetic line, it's a disruptive technology in its sense that it doesn't use technology, no animal testing and so on. Aesop has then been taken over by a private equity fund and has gone globally, and just last week was taken over by L'Oreal for $2.5 billion. So, and look at their store here in Niederdorf. It's a really beautiful store, and you can, in the end, smell well and don't. It doesn't have to be always what I mean science-based. You have to.
I agree.
It's maybe this.
Evelyn has a thing to say about that. Yeah. So sure.
It's maybe sometimes just innovation has to be done and realized in its collaboration with some entrepreneurial views. And sometimes those entrepreneurial views, you can find them in companies such as Nestlé or L'Oreal or Roche sometimes, but sometimes you find them in private equity funds through fund managers over there, or in a rich business angel.
Yeah, I agree. I would also actually have a question in there for you at InnoSwiss. But I mean, I agree. I'm a little skeptic about science-based innovation. I used to be a scientist myself, and I realized that a lot of things that we should have done that were science-based actually didn't happen. So I went into finance to figure out that you actually also had to make money. And then I founded an own company to figure out how that stuff actually makes money. But that's where I come from. I think, one question I would ask is, isn't it enough if you just connect the entrepreneurs with industry to help them actually do something that's needed and applicable? Do you have to be the funder? Because I think I have a bit of an issue the same way with parents giving their children too much money up front, right? If I do a calculation right, you have 100 million, you gave it to 50 companies, that's 2 million each on average. That's a hell of a lot of money for science-based stuff, up front. And I mean, when I go to entrepreneur events, and I can speak for myself, is I would have wanted a lot of money up front to found the company, and I'm glad I didn't get it. Because I would have done so many stupid things with that money that in hindsight I know better. And I think we really have to be careful with throwing out a lot of money to young companies, and especially unpracticed entrepreneurs sometimes. So I'm curious how you do the matchmaking and how you follow through.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we have to separate, on the one hand, the traditional innovation project funding, where we have the two actors coming together and doing a joint project. There we finance the research group only. So this is, and this is also an objective of our public funding. So we finance as well universities and especially universities of applied sciences. And very often it's the only way for them to do really research in their institutions. I think that this is one thing. And then I think very often it's for SMEs especially, it's really helpful to help them bear the risks. And that's what we do in taking over the research part of the whole project. Through their own investment, with personnel, with material or whatever, they prove that they're interested in the project, and so that skin in the game. I think that's important to have that. The other thing, that the new instrument, the financing of startups, we just at the beginning, so we have to see and look very closely how that develops. I see the danger there, of course, but I see that in the early stages, very often there is a lack of fund, where investors are not yet interested because they do not know how it would work out. So I think they're really important to have the good experts that know the business, that have experience, that are, and we have a lot of people that were founders themselves, made exits, had success, have experience, and they bring that in. And I think that's very important. And what we will do with the new startup innovation project funding is we want to accompany them much closer to see what's happening. And then we will also have to stop when we see that's going nowhere. So, but we have to start there.
Yeah. Now, we're actually getting close to, he's getting up, that's always dangerous. Are there questions from the audience?
Yes,
please.
There are questions.
Yes, please.
The one missing element, the one missing element that I see is it's the product market fit. 70%, I do a lot of research with Stanford and Berkeley in the US for the entire world. 70%, I'm talking now real tech, I mean the Silicon Valley style companies, 70% fail with the right product market fit. It's one of the toughest things. And so, but as a result of it, what you see in the last 2 years, luckily Europe, it was mentioned, has come up with about 30% contribution, participation with corporate venture capital. It's not about the capital, it's the business development. So the corporates, if startups can team up better, and that's where the focus should be, more with corporates with startups, not necessarily through the financing, but bringing them into the market with the right product market fit, the success rate is significantly higher. So in the US, as a result now, if a deal is done, 88% in the US, startups get financed after the business deal is done. And so I think there should be the focus. And if you can help out there, it's very hard for an entrepreneur to knock at the door of a big corporate and get heard.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why we have this coaching program, because we really want to help them to find the right partners. We know that from the corporates. They come to us and say, well, bring us the startups. They have to talk to us. They do have no idea of what the market, how the market works, because they're young scientists very often and have a certain idea, but that may not match with reality. And our coaches do exactly that. They help them develop the business. They can also exchange the whole, or propose to exchange the whole management team if they see that the ones that were the inventors of the knowledge are not the right persons, and so on. That they help them wherever it is important to help, and they can make these connections that are, as I agree, that's really important. So business development is a very important feature in the coaching programs we offer.
I guess I will have to stop, but I guess we can continue.
One more
discussing
final
with the-
question, maybe?
Sure.
Final
yeah.
question?
Okay.
Final
See,
questions?
he gave me some more questions. Some more questions, please.
Marcus, you're looking like you have a question. No? No. Okay, anyway. No, but then
Okay,
let's wrap
I
it
guess
up.
then, sure, I was cutting short because I've had tons of questions, but I think we can discuss those questions that we may have, because we really have, actually we lost our single man on the panel, but that doesn't matter. So,
But
we have,
and we will be back. I mean, we
yes,
will have
and we
this
will
forum
back.
next year.
yes. So I'd say I will close. Please give you a hand to those who are here, and also Maurice is no longer here, but I think
He deserves
those
a
who
hand.
really deserves a hand. So thank you very much.
Okay, so
I'll hand over to Alexander with that.
thank you very much, Jacob. This was, as always, a fantastic last panel. Also, I think the tokenization was really, really impressive, impressively organized, and really, really a big groundbreaking panel. I want to announce two things. Actually, we are organizing more events because we like this. This is what we like, and so one of the next events will actually be here together with Michael Betschart. He is part of the organizing committee together with Michael Müller. Matthias Müller, who is from BX, and he's Michael is a gifted lawyer in this area. Also, the three of us will organize the first event on listed capital, because I mean we have now been focusing so many times on alternative private capital. Now we finally will, on our 10th anniversary year of existence, or 10th anniversary next year, we will make a listed capital event with lots of exciting panels. That I would like to announce. I mentioned already with Magdalena Boskic. She has also already left. We will make something on Mika, on the blockchain. And next year we will also come back with alternative investments with an international audience and speakers like this time. So, having said that, the last thing before we will all unite for some drinks. I think we're all thirsty, also at least myself. I'm really thirsty now. I would like to first of all thank these wonderful, young, energetic lawyers in my team, Samira and Anton. Give them a big hand. And who else? Of course, I mean, it's a joke that I'm looking at for this. Of course, my wonderful moderators. The moderators, all the four moderators have done a fantastic job. The wonderful experts also keep on clapping. And of course, I mean, the wonderful audience. You've been wonderful, and I hope you all now have a drink with us.